Welcome to the Book Hook Podcast, where I've got cool insider book info, author and industry expert interviews, book reviews, and much more. I'm your host, KJ Aiello, and this is the inaugural episode. I can't believe we're finally here, and I have quite the season lined up with incredible authors, great conversations, and all the best bookish stuff. So, without further ado, let's dive in. All right, I have Ian Williams here. Ian is the author of 7 acclaimed books of fiction, poetry, and nonfiction. His debut novel, Reproduction, won the 2019 Giller Prize. I have the book here, Reproduction. His nonfiction collection, Disorientation, Being Black in the World, was a finalist for the Hillary Weston Prize for Nonfiction, as well as the CBC and Boston Globe Best Book of the Year. In 2014, Williams delivered the CNC Massey Lectures, which became the best-selling book, What I Mean to Say, which is one of my favorite essay collections now. It is on rehabilitating conversation in divisive times. A trustee for the Griffin Poetry Prize, Williams is a professor of English and director of the creative writing program at the University of Toronto. Welcome, Ian.
Hey, KJ. Thanks.
You've had so many wins and successes throughout your career. Congratulations on all of them. I feel like if I went through every single one of them and congratulated you, we would be here forever. How does all of that feel?
Yeah, like from the outside, I think it looks different from how it feels on the inside, right? And it's the same thing with being prolific. Like people sort of say, hey, you've got so many books. I'm like, do I?
Yeah.
I don't know. This has been like 20 something years, right? And it's not, it doesn't feel that way. I think when you're like living in something, it feels just very daily. Like the scale of your life is very small rather than we don't always like look at the mountain, stand on a mountain and look at our lives, right? I feel like I'm so close to it and so in it that it actually feels like I'm the same boy I was yesterday and the day before and that, right? So it just feels very like tiny and ant-like. But I think like looking back, I think people see something. And I mean, this is the great thing about being inside your own body and head, right? Like you have a perspective that other folks don't have on it. So, yeah, I think I tend to trust how I feel on the inside.
And that keeps you, I don't know if it's the humble is the word, but it keeps you grounded in being able to witness, observe,
Mm.
sort of deconstruct the world in your head as a writer and going forward in your different projects. I feel that way. I don't know if that's something that you
Yeah.
feel.
I don't know. Like, do you know writers who would actually, yeah, who actually stand on their accomplishments and sort of, yeah, get puffed up over it, right? I feel that has a kind of blighting effect, right? It really sort of warps how you touch the world and how you engage the world. I feel this way about having a lot of money too, right? Like you've just lost touch with what it means. And so I think keeping those like successes in front of you all of the time. Not to say you shouldn't have like confidence and like celebrate and all of that, but to keep it and to sort of rearrange your identity based
Yeah.
on like what you've won, I think that's a recipe. That's disaster about to happen.
I think this is hearing that perspective from you, which I've, the many interviews that I've watched of you and read,
Mm,
I've not heard quite that perspective from you, which is also, again, why I
mm.
love doing my own podcast, because
That's why you have your own
I can
podcast.
ask the questions I want. I feel like hearing that and then knowing, like, after reading You've Changed, which is your latest novel,
Mm.
the perspective that you have in witnessing this and iterating this marriage that is kind of falling apart, and it's such a quiet novel, it's such an intimate novel. I do feel like there's a part of you there, because you remain humble, you remain connected and observant, that has sort of inculcated into this novel. First of all, where did the idea of You've Changed come from?
Oh, I gotta say, I'm like beaming here over the word like quiet and intimate novel, right?
Okay.
Because
Okay.
reproduction was such like a big and sprawly and messy and like all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really did want to write something very different from reproduction. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
a really sort of quiet and intimate kind of thing. Yeah, so that's, like how you don't intend to give a compliment, but you do.
Oh,
And
you're
so,
welcome.
so I'll take that. I'll take that.
Okay.
I wanted a quiet book. Yeah. Um, yeah, where did this come from? I don't know. I feel like every character has like a bit of me in it, right? Like I think
Mhm.
every poem, every character, you just have to put something of yourself in there. else, like the gap between you and like what you're writing is it's too far, right? Um,
Mm.
what's interesting though is the difference between what you insert there of yourself and what other people think you insert there of yourself. So they think that he
Okay.
is like Beckett in this way, but no, I'm actually
Mm-hmm.
like Beckett in that way, right? And the other part is the imagination. But yeah, there's a little bit of like anchoring that needs to happen in the self, and sometimes it's the worst feature of yourself or the best feature or what have you. You gotta put like a little bit in there. What I'm not sort of a fan of though is putting all of yourself into
Mm-hmm.
like one or two characters or a certain subject position. That I in pubs or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
to pour all of yourself into that and to think all you have is that single lens on the world. That's limiting, right? I'm really against anything
Right.
that limits. Yeah.
It's a bit of an echo chamber then.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah, there's just nowhere. Yeah, the I keeps you grounded, right? Having yourself
Mm-hmm.
in there it keeps you grounded, but you also want to like depart from yourself too, right? So there's this kind of like
Yeah.
escapist desire, and I don't want to be in my head all the time, right? So,
No,
yeah.
and no, I mean, we like, having written a nonfiction book myself,
Right,
it's very much in your own head for the entire, 80, 90,000 words, but you've written
right,
a couple of nonfiction books.
right. Nonfiction's hard
Yeah.
though, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, it's hard. Well, I think both fiction and nonfiction are hard, but in very
Hmm.
different ways. What do you think the difference between them?
Yeah. Nonfiction, like nowhere to hide, right? I mean, you can
Hmm.
sort of construct a little bit of like a filter on yourself or whatnot.
Hmm.
But the sort of dealing with the reality and especially like painful subjects, the mental health
Yeah.
ones from your book. Yeah, how much of yourself do you want to divulge and sort of make public? That's always the trick with
Hmm.
nonfiction, right?
Yeah.
And if I give so much of myself and it gets abused in the public, then what's left
Hmm.
of myself, right? How does it return to me? So yeah, I don't know, did you
This
feel like you
is.
gave too much or
Oh, now we're turning it around and you're
just
interviewing me.
that's one question? I get
I
one
will.
question every
This is one question.
one question every 10 minutes I get. How about
All right, all right. I'll give you this one. I have a similar question right back to you, but we'll get to that. It was a huge consideration for me. I put
yeah.
a lot of myself out there,
Hmm.
but I had to do so knowing that like people would know these intimate things about me, these hard moments of my life, but they might find out this information about me and feel like they can relate, feel like
Hmm.
they're not alone.
Right.
So I don't know how you felt. We're going away from You've Changed
Hmm.
now, but this is where conversations go,
Yeah,
right?
just
But how
wherever.
did you feel?
Yeah, this sense that like readers get to know you, right? And you wonder like
Hmm.
how do they know this stuff about you?
Yeah.
And they're really like filling in all sorts of gaps, right, between this book and that book, and he's this kind of person, that kind of person. Um, and I mean, like, it's attractive not to be known in some respects, right? Like to have like that what we call privacy around us.
Hmm.
Yeah, this kind of like, or maybe it's armor too, right? So to not be known and not to be exposed and not to be vulnerable to target.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
some of that protection that,
Hmm.
we all want to maintain. But then there's also something really magical about someone you've never met who knows you on a level beyond the superficial, like knows how your mind works and the things you find funny. And it's like this weird marriage
Hmm.
where one side knows you really well and you have good like wishes towards the other side, right? But you really haven't met them in the same,
Hmm.
it's not reciprocated in quite the same way.
Yeah.
Blow that up by, 1,000,000% for someone like Taylor Swift or something like that, right? There's a problem of fans think they know
Parasocial
you.
relationships.
Right,
Yeah.
parasocial, right? They think they know
Hmm.
you. They think your, wedding announcement is like their own joy.
Hmm.
I don't know. It must be nice to have all of that love sort of directed towards you. But is fandom love? I don't know. They're
Hmm.
not quite equivalent, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there is also this, and going back to the novel You've Changed, because there are a lot of parallels that happen, in our real lives and our real, marriages, because this novel is all about a marriage,
Mm,
that are mirrored in real life. And it's that we've got these two characters.
mm.
Do they really know each other? They know each other, but do they really know each other?
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah. Right. And I mean, you could know someone at one point and then they
Hmm.
change, right? Hence the title. So like people are always kind of evolving, right? And
Hmm.
I think those stagnant relationships, if you scan like your friend circle,
Yeah.
um, this is a bad experiment to do, and think about the relationships that seem like healthy and prosperous and like all great, and the ones that you just don't want to be in.
Mhm.
There's a kind of
Tell me more, Ian.
there's a kind of like freezing or stagnation or something that happens. Um, and it's in like the marriage itself, right? It's not because like,
Mhm.
their attention is on kids or whatever. There's just something stale about it, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
There is a mirror there. Something a little bit frightening too.
yeah, right.
I found when I was, please, nobody please read into this. Oh my goodness. Okay, so backtracking here, there is it is there's a lot to think about
Mm,
from this novel and from how these two characters interact with one another.
mm,
Um, because I am an MFA student, as we talked about before, and I
mm.
am a writer and I'm very interested in form, I
Yeah.
do think that a lot of the character development, the character introduction, the setting, what is the right now, and then the change and the development is very much also reflected in the form of this novel,
Mm.
which I'm interested in.
Ooh.
Yeah, I learned
So,
from Kinesia Lubrin, okay?
right. So we can talk technically here, right? Yeah, okay.
Let's talk technically, right? This is why I have my own podcast. This is the point where we lose just general readers.
Oh,
Doesn't
okay.
matter.
They can
It's
come
an
back in 10
interesting
minutes.
thing. No, no, no. You can come back. We'll let you know. Um, I
Uh,
felt like this novel, it was almost like a palindrome.
hmm.
It ended kind of where it started, and yet everything changed, but really did anything change?
Oh,
Trying to find a question there, but I kind of want
yeah.
to just
No, I see what
get your
you're.
thoughts on that.
Yeah, like in the shape of the novel, right? There's something
Mm-hmm.
satisfying about return, right? Like reproduction thing,
Yeah.
kind of thing. It returns to the beginning, but the
Mm-hmm.
whole world is different, right? Like there's
Mm-hmm.
just really no going back. But
Yeah.
formally, how does that look, right? I mean, most people, so like a general kind of like lit podcaster, interested in what's the story about and all of that stuff. But how does
Mm-hmm.
it work? We've got these kind of formal changes happening like incrementally. There are three
Mm-hmm.
parts in the book.
Yeah.
And in the first part, we see that there's no first line to the book, right? The first line is actually white space. It's illegible.
Yeah.
It's just this fade in, like a song fading in, and we just see someone's day, Beckett's day. He's
Mm-hmm.
getting the groceries, he's choosing avocados, he's buying grapefruit, he's, pricing nails and lumber. And this
Mm-hmm.
slow fade in from ordinary life onto, but here's where the story begins when the text
Yeah.
goes black. Um, so there's this sense of um, imperceptible change right from the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, right? Like change is not something that's always like definite and pronounced. It's these
Mm-hmm.
imperceptible sort of rising out of everyday life. And there'll be these fade outs that happen in part one,
Mm-hmm.
and these fade ins, a memory will sort of get just kind of like fritter away.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's not all meant to be legible, right? Some of that great
Mm-hmm.
text is just supposed to disappear, and we have to be okay with just not knowing everything and not seeing
Mm-hmm.
everything and not observing, noticing everything. So, yeah, that's part of the technique stuff in the first part. In the second part, we get this blacked out text, right? This
Mm-hmm.
book starting to censor itself with all of the words that are offensive, and we see what's
Mm-hmm.
going on in Alberta right now. And so, like, just a Sharpie taken
Yeah.
to those words that are some quite innocent, but used in a used
A
contextually even.
derogatory. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Weaponized.
right, yeah, right. And so all of it just like erased and blocked under and
Mm-hmm.
suppressed, right? This real kind of repression starting to happen in part two of the book. And like how much of that is the unconscious acting, all of that. And then in part three, like a really interesting thing happens, I think formally, which is we don't have the black text being erased, and it doesn't quite fade in and fade out until the very end. But
Mm-hmm.
we've got this kind of like memory text, is what I call like with the editors at Random House, Anne and Sarah. This memory text where things that you've seen before just kind of recur, but they
Mm-hmm.
recur in a new context, right? You're being triggered to something you read earlier on. So it's this kind of like memory or a repetition, but in a new context, you're like, wow, that pings very differently now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm with my wife, but I'm thinking with that about that person there,
Mm-hmm.
and that text is just kind of like quieted, back to your word,
Yeah.
like subdued a little bit. and set in the text. So yeah, all of these like visual effects to
Hmm.
sort of like replicate how our memories work and how our lives work and how the past comes back and is always with us, and how things are like under a hard marker and some things are under a slow
Hmm.
fade.
Hmm.
Yeah, a number of things happening there formally.
I like though when you use the word these incremental changes because really, again, we're talking about a marriage here, and if we're talking about any kind of an intimate, long-term relationship and friendships as well,
Yeah.
there are all these little incremental changes that we don't necessarily pick up on, but then all of a sudden we're here one day and we're meeting somebody named Gluten, which I feel like we need to get back to.
Right,
And we're going, who are we? Who am I? Why am I
right,
making these decisions?
right,
Can we
right.
talk
The
a little
small
bit
things.
about gluten?
But the small things do accumulate, right?
They
Like
do.
I've been. This is the point from
Yeah.
the disorientation. When like a black guy like snaps finally,
Mm.
it's not because of like one incident. It's like all of these accumulations of like
Yes.
sort of like dehumanization and humiliation and all of
Yeah.
this. And so like the incremental is really the gradual and the slow and the quiet.
Yeah.
For me, is so like in this decade of my life in the 40s, like really, really interesting and important to me, right? Compared to like the loud, the shouting, the very visible, noticeable change. It's right,
Yeah.
this process of how we become something else, and how some of us interrupt that process before it comes to
Mm.
fruition and all of that. So, yeah, gluten?
Oh, yeah. Can we talk about gluten? I like, how do we
Oh,
do this without giving too much away? But where did this guy, he's a lovable kind of a dolt, but he's just so interesting.
do you
But
have like
he's
a golden retriever in your life? Do you have
Yeah,
like a
he's
person of a
no.
golden retriever?
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody needs to have their golden retriever, the one, symbolic golden retriever in their life. And
Yeah,
that is kind of what gluten is. But
yeah,
how does, where did he come into play for
yeah.
you when you were imagining this story?
You know what? So, I mean, I would have to tell you like how this book came to be, right? Like where it emerged
Hmm.
from. But I mean, like you need a character that you really love, like in a book, right?
Hmm.
A character who just comes in there and just is like chaos incarnate, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
you need someone like you just can't control, you can't handle. Sometimes it's a kid. In reproduction, for me, that was Army, right? And that
Mhm.
voice was there from the beginning, like really insistent. And I would love to see like, oh, this should be like the future of like book movie crossovers, right? Where you
Okay.
like smash together like two books and you have like two very different characters. Like, I'd love to see like Army and Gluten like go at it, right? I think they would get
Yeah.
along.
Universe crossover. This is what we say in layman's terms. This is a
Universe
universe
crossover. I
crossover.
would like that crossover there, right?
All right, production companies, do you hear this?
Get those two guys in a room. Get a little Matthew McConaughey action going on.
Yeah.
Strange kind of character, right? And the kind of character where the surface actually doesn't reveal the depths of what's going on inside, right?
Mhm.
And I think sometimes you see someone who's extroverted and who's kind of like fun, and you think that there's nothing going on in the brain, or you think that it's
Mhm.
all surface. And no, like I think in part two, you do see Gluten changing from like this fun-loving kind of person, and he becomes quite subdued.
Mhm.
Um, by the end, that's his pain or his hurt or whatever,
Mhm.
just kind of finding expression, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, gluten's kind of neat because everybody goes through their own change, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then he returns to something else in part three, and the folks we don't think we're drawn to, right? The folks who just kind of
Mhm.
puzzle us, the opposites attract in a
Yeah.
marriage. You're like, I just kind of want to know what's going on in that
Yeah.
person's life. Yeah.
Yeah, it was almost like I don't want to say gluten was, the water that froze in the cracks, right?
Ah,
But he was almost I felt like he came into Beckett's life at a time when there were those cracks and they just needed one little push
yeah.
to split open.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I'm having
but
this like image of like those Japanese pottery things with the gold in the middle there, right?
yes,
So
what do
he
they
could be
call it?
like the
Yeah,
ice. I forget what that's called, but
yeah,
yeah, like the ice or the gold in the cracks, and he
hmm,
fills a need for a while, right?
it does.
Yeah, I mean that need can be filled by a person, by some action, by a job, by a number of things we use to
Hmm.
medicate ourselves. Yeah, I mean, one of the epigraphs at the beginning of the book, it's something like,
There's
"Is it
Amy
right?" There's
Winehouse.
Amy Winehouse, but is it right to use someone only for your own pleasure?
Roy Anderson.
Right,
Yes.
right. And
Hmm.
so I don't like, I can't do that to someone, right? I can't like have someone just kind of fill a single need for me, right? I feel like that's
Hmm.
turning someone into a kind of like service.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's been a something I've been thinking about for like 20 years, right? And then in reverse, I think about like how other people kind of make us service animals for their own ego or needs or
Yeah.
whatever. And the challenge here was to like make sure gluten was not just, a foil or something else to
Hmm.
fill a need for Beckett, but that he remained like uncompromising,
Hmm.
right? Like that he remained himself, regardless of the pressure to be transactional. Yeah.
Yeah. I did find Gluten to be the most surprising of the characters. And I see a change in Princess and Beckett. I'm not entirely convinced, and I think this is the point of, diverse readership and, coming from different walks of life and our own experiences, because we always map our own experiences onto the page, no matter who we are, what we're reading. I think one of the interesting things about this novel is that I'm not entirely convinced that Princess and Beckett really did change. Perhaps maybe they went back to who they were before marriage.
Mhm.
I don't know. But there was something about Beckett that I felt was satisfying and needed.
Ah, that's a great
You-
read.
Yeah.
That's a great
Did
read,
I do
KJ.
good?
Yeah, it's something I'm gonna have to like go home and think about here,
Okay.
um, because the change that we want to see in people is often
Hmm.
growth, right?
Hmm.
And in a character, we want to see them change towards growth and towards progress. But there is a kind of change that is regressive, right? The change to
Hmm.
being the person that you were before.
Yeah.
And we see this, I don't know, like if you meet up with a friend from like 20 years ago and suddenly you're like back in high school mode. I'm like, I don't talk like that. I don't.
Yeah, but now apparently you do as a mid-40s person.
Right? Or like you go back to visit your parents and suddenly you're like 8 years old
You're
again
the
when your
child
brother's
again.
right. Your
Hmm.
brother's in the room and you're like suddenly like bickering over stuff. I'm like, just clean up after yourself or whatever. Like, right? But, so there's a kind of like change that is like regressive too, right? Like that you sort of,
Yeah.
or recursive at least, that keeps coming back at points in your life. And I think with these characters, like to interpret like what is the nature of their change, right?
Yeah.
Is it actually advantageous? Is it progress?
Hmm.
Is it growth? Or is it just depth into more of who they were before, right?
Yeah.
Just a kind of tunneling into your own
Hmm.
desire rather
Yeah.
than an expansion outward, right? An inward kind of
Yeah.
movement instead of an outward one.
I wonder if for Beckett it was a bit more of discovery, and even Princess, it feels like there was sort of this independence that she was harnessing, and maybe that's an exploration of who they were before
Right.
when they couldn't do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think in Princess's case, there's a moment where, I want to be married, not necessarily to you. Right?
Girl.
There's something about that, right? Like I just want to be in this dynamic of
Yeah.
intimacy with somebody, and I could swap you out, maybe, but somebody like you, somebody kind of like
Princess.
you. A friend was
Yeah.
telling me today, right? He connected with so how to put this? So like a girlfriend from high school,
Yeah.
they broke up, and then she got together with someone who's exactly like him, looked like him, had the long
Yeah.
hair and everything, and I think they went on and had kids and everything, right? So there was a kind of like type that she
Yeah.
had circulating, and it's kind of like I want to be with someone who sort of reminds me of you, but there are
Yeah.
a million people to choose from who sort of have your features and who can
Yeah.
sort of like fill that place.
You can swap them out, like you said. This is so
And then
this
are we
feels like marriage capitalism. This feels good.
oh no. Oh
We're
no.
getting all of the details from you now.
Oh wow. That's
Sorry if I
chilling,
gave
isn't
you
it?
like a new perspective on your own novel.
Oh, that would be really chilling. That
Yeah.
there's
I
something
mean,
yeah, but I mean there's something already commercialized about sort of like
mm,
how the dating apps work and all of that,
yeah.
right? Like, I don't like your hair, swipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean there's also already something very kind of transactional about how we think about other people and their life mates and
Yeah.
whatnot. I don't know what my algorithm is feeding me now on IG, but there was this reel of a guy, that balloon pop TV show or whatever. Anyway, someone was saying like, "You are a liability to my life." I was like, "You've known this woman for about 2.5 minutes, right? Like, you can't like make
Can
those
you make
grand
that?
judgments about her being a
That's
liability."
hurtful.
Right. You don't know this person to say something so like absolute about them. And so, yeah, maybe there's a kind of capitalist energy
Mhm.
that we're definitely like bringing into our relationships.
I think that actually kind of reminds me, and this is my very elegant segue,
Mhm.
of the transactional nature of our relationships and how you iterated that. One of the parts of that within what I mean to say, again, like I'm going to go on forever because this is one of my favorite essay collections. First of all, how can you write an entire essay collections about conversation? Have you had this question before?
No, I have not actually.
About all
What are your-
about conversations.
Oh,
How did that happen?
but so as a writer, okay, so you have to like think
Hmm.
about this, your writing hat on now. Um,
Hmm.
there are certain things that writers do well, right? Like there's
Hmm.
certain like some people like Jordan Abel and that book Empty Spaces just now, just all landscape, just all setting. He could
Yeah.
just do that like forever. You've got people who writers who are just like really great at like drawing characters, right?
Yeah.
And others who are really good at like interior life, but nothing really happens in their books, right? And some people are like
Hmm.
plot people, some people are world building people and
Yeah.
imaginative people. Um,
Hmm.
and I'm sort of like a dialogue person. I'm a voice person, right? I like
Hmm.
my own voice in books and I like the voices of characters in books. And so it's natural that I've been thinking about conversations and dialogue for a long time and thinking about them like fictionally and thinking about the
Hmm.
crossover between the real world and fiction and the difference between like how characters talk in books versus how they talk in life. And the natural extension from of that for me is like how we talk in the real world and how we talk to each
Hmm.
other online or engage with each other online, which is kind of a fictional space.
Yeah.
It's maybe more of like a creative non-fictional space, right? Rather than a purely fictional
Yeah.
space. And so, like, to negotiate, like, how our really sort of rapid fire exchanges happen in all of these iterations of ourselves, our bodies. I mean, that's been kind of like an obsession for a long time. So for me, it's like leaning into your strengths. If you're Adele, you sing
Yeah.
ballads, right? If you're Billie Eilish, you whisper sing.
Yeah.
If you're Sade, you're not gonna like write a rock ballad, right? Like they're just
Yeah.
things that you'd be obsessed with. So, like as a writer, then this is my second question.
Okay. You get three.
So then, as a writer, like, what is your strength that you find yourself like you do it well in books? Was it the disclosure bit, or what was it for you?
I think it's more the why people do what they do. I think it's
Motivation.
more the psychology of it. I mean, I went back to university
Mm,
once I finished my BA. I went back for, quote unquote, upgrade to UFC
mm.
to take psychology and neuroscience because why not? Right.
Wow.
But it was more to, because I live with mental illness and it was more to understand myself. We are all
Mm,
egocentric, do not kid yourself. But I'm always really interested in why people do what they do. And particularly when people do bad things, I want to
mm,
know why, because I don't think anybody, well, there are some people who are inherently bad people,
mm.
but I don't necessarily think that people are inherently bad. I
Right.
think sometimes they make bad choices and do bad things, but I want to know why. And that, to me, I mean, I explored it very much in my own book, my
Mm.
nonfiction book. And this is what I'm doing going forward in my fiction. And it's basically been the undercurrent of all of my writing. And I
Yeah.
realize now that
Yeah.
I wrote my nonfiction book that this has been the theme throughout my life is
Right.
why are people doing what they do? I
Right.
need those answers.
Right,
So,
right, right. So the
yeah.
shocking thing is like not the event, right? Not the,
Yeah.
let's say, like not the murder or whatever that happens,
Yeah.
but it's like how, uh,
Why?
yeah, how does this ordinary person, seemingly ordinary person, do this kind of heinous thing? What are the
Yeah.
steps that creates
Yeah.
this monster, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that's my answer for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
right. So, I mean, I would look at your books for like motivation. Are you writing fiction or nonfiction now? That's like to
Both.
be. That's
Yeah.
not a new question.
Yeah, to be. Okay, okay. Fine. I feel like we're gonna have to get together for coffee, okay?
You said you're doing both?
I do both. Yeah, I do creative. I do nonfiction and fiction. I'm doing,
Simultaneously now? You're doing that?
yeah, simultaneous. I don't know why. Just my brain is all over the
It's
place.
gonna break at some point with that.
It is, but you do this as well. You do
I do.
nonfiction and
I do,
fiction.
and poetry, but there's a point where I just have
Yeah.
to do like the one project, right? I can do a few
Yeah.
things simultaneously for a bit. But like if you're writing like a novel or something big or like a full-length nonfiction collection, there's a point where you can't hold both universes in your head. Like you have
True.
to give good attention
Yeah.
to like one thing. My mother likes to tell this story, but like when my brother and I were both kids, so I was a newborn and my brother was like, a year and a
Hmm.
half old, and she was trying to like divide her attention like equally across us.
Hmm.
And my grandfather, her father said, my brother started crying a lot, right, and like really
Yeah.
acting up a bit. My grandfather said, "You can't do both. Put the baby down for a little bit and give my brother, some
Yeah.
attention." And so I feel that way, like when I'm writing across genres, right? Like I got to put the baby down for a bit, like whatever it
Yeah.
is, and just focus on one project.
I actually want to go back to what I mean to say because
Mm,
first of all, how did this come about? Was this something that CBC approached you on? Did
yeah,
you pitch this idea?
yeah.
How long was it, mulling around in your brain before it even started to take shape?
Right, right, right. So I was doing like a few events with CBC, like just kind of like
Hmm.
partnerships beforehand with them. And I know they were looking like a few years out for their Massey lectures and so forth.
Hmm.
And they just kind of like approached me, "Hey, are you thinking about anything these days?" Right? Like it was
Oh.
that. And I didn't know what the purpose was. And then a few
Hmm.
lunches later, they were like, "Okay, cards on the table here. Um,
Hmm.
would you be interested in doing this?" Because I was saying like, here's the thing that's really bothering me these days, this kind of breakdown in like how we're talking to each other, and
Hmm.
sort of like the decline of like political discourse and all sorts of things, and I'm interested in that, but that's actually like just an umbrella under which I can talk about a whole other bunch of other
Yeah.
things, loneliness and what have you. So yeah, they were really like amenable to the umbrella that I opened there
Hmm.
and the ways of organizing it. Yeah, there's some really like good and smart people over there, right? Like
Hmm.
just yeah, I know CBC always has its woes every, few
Hmm.
years and whatnot, but
Hmm.
like on the individual level, like organizationally, what have you, but like some smart, like really
Hmm.
committed thinking folks who are behind the scenes on the producer
Yeah.
part of things. So
And
yeah,
then it came to
right.
this amazing collection that was completely surprised me, and I made a lot of notes. I'm an annotator. Um,
You're
I was
getting that
also,
in the book
I
there,
do.
right?
I'm a writer. Okay, this is what we do. I make messes of my books. If you see your book in my hands and it's a disaster, know that
Oh,
I'm enjoying it.
that's great.
Yeah. One of the things that I really found interesting is who owns the conversation, who is, the caretaker of the conversation,
Yeah.
who navigates the conversations.
Mm,
I'm wondering if we could go to something that is a little bit more uncomfortable because this essay collection is all about how we have conversations and particularly uncomfortable conversations. And we in CanLit are, as you have said in the past, there is a division that is happening. I mean, we've had our ups and downs. We are a marriage, all of us.
yeah,
We're coming up to almost a year out from the Gillers last year, and there was a bit of there was more division that happened, and
right.
particularly you came into the spotlight. I'm wondering where you think we are sitting now as a collective, as a community of writers and political people
Yeah.
going forward.
Yeah, I think the divisions are still present, right? I think,
Yeah.
yeah, what sort of like bothers me is like when we think that, yeah, I was thinking, KJ, okay, props to you, okay, for raising that. But I was thinking about this like a few weeks ago. I was in Australia and I thinking about, so Canlit seems to have quieted down, I thought. And I was like, is that good, right? Does this mean that
Mhm.
there's some kind of peace that has been struck that, that we've sort of reached a position that we can see each other again? And that's what I wanted to believe. But like the more I thought about it, I was like, I am not convinced that that's actually what happened.
Okay.
Um, and I think maybe what I'm perceiving as silence is in fact the division of camps,
Okay.
and that the camps have sort of moved to places further apart, right?
Okay.
So that the camps are talking to each other and within specific groups, and there's less overlap. and
Mm,
which means that there's less contact to fight and less contact
mm,
to disagree, or at least that we're throwing stones from a further distance, right? So that they don't
mm,
hit as hard as when we're up close. And I think sort of the consolidation of camps
mm,
is not the victory that we should strive towards. I would prefer to be in the uncomfortable, disagreeable, sort of messy situation, the situation where you don't like me and you're saying to me
mm,
that you don't like me, and I know that, and I've got to sort of like process what it is
mm,
about our differences that's sort of making this true, than to not hear from you and to have you not hear from me, right?
mm,
Yeah, like to move to opposite sides of the country, as these are my people and I need no others, right? I think that kind of atomization of
mm,
Canlit, yeah, is not good. I mean, we're facing like other challenges, like with AI,
yeah.
with like other
Mm,
things, where we really do um, need to realize, like, hey, there's some things that that the community rearranges itself around, right? Like,
mm,
there's more points of intersection on this issue, and that we can work together here, and maybe on this issue, not so much, right?
mm,
Um, I don't know, KJ. So as always, like it continues to evolve for me, right? And where's the conversation happening, and who with, and is it even a conversation anymore? I don't know. This is like one of the heartbreaking things, right? Like to see communities kind of like splinter, and when they reform, do they reform with a kind of toxicity as the norm, or do
mm,
they reform with ideas of like punishment and retribution if you don't sort of toe my line or hold my views and
mm,
all of that?
mm, mm,
Like, do we just remake, authoritarianism and like forms of control, or just
mm,
change who the leaders are? I don't
mm.
know.
I'm
It's,
wondering if we can articulate what the conversation is here that we were having, but we are no longer having.
yeah. So on a meta level, the conversation for
Hmm.
me is like how to disagree.
Yeah,
Like how to disagree. That conversation that you raised about the Gillers for me is
yeah.
about, well, that's part of it is about disagreement, but in fact, I think I don't disagree with a lot of people who think I disagree with, right? Um,
Okay.
uh, Part of the conversation is about what is the role of the writer in society,
Right.
right? Like, oh, how much of her political views must be declared? Um,
Yeah.
is it irresponsible not to share what you think?
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, what is the place of politics in even a fictional
Hmm.
space of writing fiction or poetry, right?
Hmm.
What is our personal responsibility? How is our morality being announced?
Hmm.
And also, how's it being manipulated and used, right? Like, those are the
Hmm.
issues for me. And so the camps get divided around that. And there's a very sort of, that's on the meta level, there's a very practical
Hmm.
question about Palestine and genocide,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, and what support looks like,
Yeah.
um, and what complicity looks like, right? That's
Yeah.
that's the other part of the conversation. Yeah, and there are a bunch of like levers and silencing mechanisms right from the beginning of what I
Hmm.
mean to say, right? Like that
Yeah.
prohibit how the conversation can happen, even among ourselves, right? So yeah,
And you'd said in an interview with Alamin Abdul Mahmoud,
yeah.
who is an amazing one. Is speaking of CBC amazing people, he's one of those amazing people. And it was a tough conversation that you two had
Yeah.
after the Gillers,
It was
and
very
you
immediate too. It was like
it was
the day
very
after,
immediate.
no
And I
process.
I know that yeah, you hadn't had a lot of time to process what happened. And I watched some of the footage when you had walked out to meet the protesters, and from my perspective, you looked like a deer in the headlights.
Mm,
It looked like it was tough,
mm,
but you had said in this interview, it felt like it's not join us,
mm,
and if you don't join us, shame on you.
mm.
So that polarized divisiveness. I'm wondering if we can go back to that, what you'd said, and it was, almost a year ago now.
Yeah.
Is that still a sentiment?
I think for me, it's when I think back to that, it's in which space I wanted to be on in both of those spaces, right? That's the
Hmm.
difficult thing here.
Hmm.
and there was absolutely no mobility to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a person like one of my number one attributes or my number one sort of like prized features or desires is freedom, right? And
Mm-hmm.
anything that encroaches on my freedom um, to do things, I don't have to exercise my rights all the time or whatnot. But the sense of being constrained or not being able to move
Mm-hmm.
between spaces that I do want prosperity for the candlelit community. I
Yeah.
do think prizes sort of give visibility and sort of help careers and all of that and can do good. I do. And at the same time, I do agree that something terrible is happening in
Mm-hmm.
Gaza and that there's, now it's very clear, right,
Mm-hmm.
what's happening there. And yeah, how to, I don't know if reconciliation is necessary here.
Within Canlit.
Um, Within being in two rooms. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's simply not possible, KJ. Maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
simply not possible, just as we physically can't be. I can't be
Mm-hmm.
here and at the same time at home. I can't be in my
Mm-hmm.
office at home.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's no longer possible. Some folks in Canlit will say maybe it's no longer possible
Mm-hmm.
for people to be in two spaces. You're either with us or against us. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that sentiment there, that's what was kind of like shouted at me there,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's the emotion. And so that was, for me, felt like a bit of a rejection. And it's a rejection that I didn't do for myself, right? It's being cast out rather
Yeah.
than leaving. I mean, there's a very big difference between leaving a community and being thrown out of a community. And I think another part of this conversation is what are perceptions of elitism within CanLit
Mm-hmm.
and power and centers of power? Who holds it?
Mm-hmm.
Um, what are the different kinds of power that we share in this space? Like, what is the online social media power? What is the
Mm-hmm.
kind of institutional power? What is the MFA power?
Mm-hmm.
The power of the unions, writers' unions, and the prize
Mm-hmm.
power. Um, how are all of these various types of power dispersed?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and why does it upset one camp when a different kind of power is being used to advance the same causes that they're
Mm-hmm.
advancing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why must power flow only through the channels of the vocal rather than the channels of your perceived antagonist? So I don't like to say it's complicated anymore because I think that's been misused now, right? To sort
Mm-hmm.
of have people obfuscate their moral position.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think you can see like there are a number of things like at play, and I really urge us not to be reductionist, right, in how
Okay.
we go forward, not do this us versus them thing, not to cannibalize ourselves and think
Mm-hmm.
that that is somehow virtuous or of a higher moral order.
So, what do we think? What is this sort of a call for us to come to the table together and to remember our community?
Yeah,
But how do we move past something that is?
yeah,
There is a lot happening right now in the world, and writers do have power. Whether we want it or not, we do have power, and our books are political. It doesn't matter what you're writing. Um, in that going forward, how do we come together? Is
yeah.
there a
Well,
path forward?
first, like, what is the forum, right, for us to
Yeah.
actually talk or have this conversation? It doesn't have to be a single
Mm.
discrete conversation.
Hmm.
Um, but what is the space? I don't think it's working online. I don't
Yeah.
think so. I think it's
Social media online.
social media online.
Right.
Sorry, yeah.
Right.
I think there's a kind of yeah, like point scoring kind of thing that's happening
Hmm.
there, kind of tit for tat.
Yeah.
That's not. It's just not generative. Like what we're doing here
Hmm.
feels like I can sort of think aloud with you. Maybe some of this will come back to me in a year,
Hmm.
and like age badly or not be reflective of how I
Hmm.
feel. We need to get together. Maybe this is an encouragement to something like writers or literary festivals or something of
Hmm.
the next 2 or 3 years to do programming that's not deliberately like confrontational or sensational,
Hmm.
but to do programming that puts people who seem to be on opposite sides of the spectrum into the same space for an hour.
Hmm.
And yeah, we're talking about our books, but we're also talking about community, and we're
Yeah.
also getting used to each other again,
Hmm.
right? In real space and real time. And there's also an audience there that can help moderate like how
Yeah.
we engage, right?
So
So
perhaps a panel, something like that.
a panel or festivals, I think like our
Hmm.
book events, like the conversations that happen around our books, the dialogue around there where there's an audience present, I think maybe is the space for some of this healing to happen. We're never going to be unified. There's never going to be a single unified voice for all writers across this country. We're simply too diverse.
Hmm.
We hold different views. Yeah, my hope is that lit festivals can be like the music festivals of like if people could just sort of go and like enjoy themselves and like do all of that.
Oh,
But they
the
could also
dream.
lots of people show up. There's like Burning Man of lit
Yeah.
festivals. Also, like, but then that also we can do some like serious like nutritional like work too, right? Like for our
Yeah.
communities and for readers and culture. I was feeling hopeless a few months ago, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
How?
yeah.
How so? Can I ask?
Yeah, I was feeling kind of hopeless about just kind of people like factioning off into their own orbits,
Hmm.
losing touch of um, even if there's some kind of schism in the writing community, there are writers who like may not like me for whatever reason, but I still like their books and I still like their writing and I still like their work and I'm still going to read them. Um,
Hmm.
and I don't believe in sort of punishing a writer because I disagree with their views, right? Like I'm still interested in the careers of writers, right?
Hmm.
And I still want
Hmm.
to see what they're thinking about and how they grow. And
Hmm.
especially if we're the same age, I want to see us in 20 years together. And I want them to pursue their path with like a free conscience, right?
Hmm.
And that
Hmm.
I think is owed to me reciprocally, right?
Well, I do hope this too. I know that, our upcoming festival, Eden Mills, which
Yeah.
you're going to be at, I'm attending.
Mhm.
I'm very excited to see everybody there. I always feel like I'm, coming back in like what is it, alumni get together. I always feel like with some of these festivals.
It's a good one. Are you doing anything
Yeah.
for your book? Your book came out what, last year?
It came out last year. I'm
Yeah.
not at Eden Mills as a writer. I'm there also supporting some of my colleagues within the MFA at Guelph
Mhm.
University program because they do I can't remember what it's called, but the Emerge.
Yeah.
So a lot of the students get a chance to read their work, which
Oh,
is
nice.
so wonderful because some of them have never read their work out loud before,
Yeah. That's
so
it.
it's
Oh,
special.
oh, it's what I love hearing. Like there are people constantly
Yeah.
coming into our communities all the time, right? And we got
Yeah.
to be good to like these folks. Like once upon a time, we
Yeah.
were the folks like entering the community and like, okay, trying to find my
The
way,
scared newbies.
right? And
Yeah.
let's like take them in. Like let's say like you can just
Mm.
be yourself. It's safe-ish here,
Mhm.
right? Like this
But
is
safe enough also to voice our opinions
exactly right.
and be
Like
heard. Yeah.
I say it's safe-ish that no one is going to come after you to hurt you deliberately to do some
Hmm.
evil to you, right? Like
Hmm.
it's not going to be.
Hmm.
And I think we also need a space where we don't have to be good all the time, right? And perfect
Hmm.
all the time. And
Hmm.
writers, if you're 24 in an MFA program, 26, 30, and you're figuring things out, you should be able to do that
Hmm.
publicly. You should be able to make a misstep without the community sort of like black sheeping you. Just
Hmm. And that's part of what we do as writers too. As we grow, we evolve. I
that's
mean,
right.
props to the editors,
Yeah. Yeah.
the unsung heroes of this industry.
Who are finding people and like nurturing. Yeah,
Yeah, and like fixing all of our mistakes.
right.
First of
I
all.
love, like, where's like I would like this kind of like inversion to happen one day, like a lit festival where like the producers are on stage and the hosts are on stage
Oh,
and the editors and the graphic
yes.
design people.
I think that would be more for the authors. I'm not sure there'd be too many readers coming to that, but
Oh,
for
but
us,
these
for
folks are
us.
they know so much, right? This would be like a behind the
Mhm.
scenes with like
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
he was tough to
Yeah.
work with at first, right? Like he just thought blah 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 about
Yeah.
his books, but I kept digging in about this and that and that.
So you
Yeah.
want us to all spill the tea is what I'm hearing.
A little bit of tea, just a little kind of like a little tipping over
I
into the
love it.
saucer.
I'll buy into this. Okay, you have my support.
I'd
I
like to
want
hear that
this.
conversation.
I want this for us.
Writers and
So,
editors. Yeah.
yes, I know before we got on here, you were saying you were busy writing this morning, which
Yeah.
I think is amazing. Anything? What have you got in the works? You want to talk about
Ooh.
what's going forward for you?
Yeah, so right now I've got these three projects that I want to do. The one that I was working on today is
Mm,
poetry. And
mm,
poetry for me is like total palate cleanser, right? You work on these long
mm,
projects and I go back and
mm,
poetry cleans me up. It's like a
mm.
diuretic or something, like just cleans through all of the stuff that's built up in
Oh,
the
I love
colon.
it.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and so there's this real like cleansing that's happening with the poetry. But as I
Mm,
was working on it today, I realized that there's a project underneath this, like an underpainting
mm,
underneath this project that
mm,
I'm working on. And so there's all of this kind of like, how to put it, like sprawling constellation-like energy going
mm,
on in the
mm,
poems. But beneath that, there's something much more like quiet and rudimentary and simple
mm,
that wants its spot too,
mm.
right? So that
Yeah.
was my realization today. I think there's going to be a shadow book emerging underneath that, and maybe it's a book just for me, a kind of clarification book, or
Mm.
maybe the main project gets ditched and the shadow project becomes the project. We'll see. By December or so, I think I'll have a sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm interested in this, and
poetry.
I love that you're writing something just for you because I do feel like, when we get into the industry, it's like, what do we have to write versus
Yeah,
what do we want to write?
right,
It's a real push-pull,
right. Do you keep
you know.
journals or diaries or anything?
I used to, and I
Yeah,
just got too busy to do
yeah,
with all my writing. So I feel
yeah,
like I need to go back to that. Actually,
yeah.
quite recently, I thought I need to go back to that.
Same. Had this thought when I was in Australia. I was like, it's just, yeah, they're kind of projecty things that I keep just to myself. But maybe it's, as a kid, I kept like lots of like journals and
Oh,
diaries. I've got like
yes.
at least a decade of them. And I think it would be
Yeah.
nice to just kind of go back to that kid, just
There is a
return.
part of us as writers, I do think it's a cyclical thing where we go back to who we
Yeah,
were as the kid writers,
yeah,
occasionally to remind ourselves of our roots.
right, right,
Why
right.
did we start in the first place?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like Sheila Heti did that alphabetical diaries recently, right? And I think she's
right.
probably having this kind of moment where she's combing through her diaries and saying, like, who is that person? Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for everything that you have coming out
Mhm.
in the future. When your next project is out, I would love to
Oh,
have you back. Such
oh,
a
that'd
wonderful
be great.
conversation.
Thanks. Can I take
Yeah.
my third question now?
Yeah.
Great. It's the same one you asked me. So you said you're doing a
I
fiction
love
and a
it.
nonfiction project. What are you doing?
Me right now.
Yeah. For me, that's always the
So,
most exciting question you can ask, like a
oh my
writer. Like, what are
gosh,
you
yeah,
doing?
what do you,
Yeah.
but it's also like you just put me in the hot seat.
Yeah, it's the deer in the
How do
headlights
you,
thing.
yeah, how do you articulate this without sounding like an idiot? Because you're still kind of like, what is it I'm
Totally
doing?
no.
I don't
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So I actually am working on revisions of a novel that I thought was going to be my thesis project for my
Hmm.
MFA, but it actually turns out it's going to be ready to go to my agent this fall,
Oh,
meaning
wow.
I have to write another novel for my thesis project. But I know. What am I doing?
All right. That's
What?
the best possible kind of problem that you want to have,
It's a
right?
huge
This is
problem.
the good kind of problem.
It is a really good problem, and I know I can, work my way through it. I can white
Oh,
knuckle this.
right. And you know, you have the idea for the new novel, right? Like, you know what it's going to
Yes,
be?
I know what it's going to be. It's all plotted out. We're ready to go. I know, what the meat of it is. What is it? What is the what of the novel?
Yeah.
But I was really surprised at how the novel that I thought was going to be my thesis project, which is going to my agent this fall, of how it turned out. And like you said, when you're working on something, you sort of see this shadow painting underneath.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to get into that cadence with my project that it's like it starts somewhere,
Yeah.
then I start to see the real truth come out
Yeah.
and what I
Yeah.
really want to write.
Right.
What is it trying to be? So I'm at that sort of exciting juncture where it's like I'm seeing this
Right.
become real. This is
Right.
what I
Right.
want, right?
Yeah. What's the
Yeah.
like the theme or the topic or like the one sentence plot?
Oh, one sec. You trying to get me to pitch it in an elevator pitch here?
The elevator pitch.
What?
just got a couple of
Okay.
fours.
Oh my gosh. This is your fourth question, by the way, but
That was 3C, 3B. That was just,
okay, fine, fine,
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
I will say it's sort of liminal intrusive fantasy. It's set in our world, basically is about loved ones, caregivers, family members doing the hard work to understand somebody who is in the midst
Mm,
of a severe, like psychotic episode or a
mm,
mental health care crisis, but
mm.
told with fantasy.
Right. How
Right. So
far
it's sort
will
of,
we go to like
yeah,
know and understand the person that we love, right?
yeah. And help
Or
bring them out of it and
to
bring them
retrieve
back.
them.
Yeah, that's
That's
what it
beautiful. Like
is.
concept, like as a
Yeah.
conceit. That's,
Yeah. And I got to work with Amanda Leduc over the summer.
oh, yeah,
Perfect
yeah,
match.
yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
Understands
Yeah.
it right from the inside. Yeah,
She got it right from the
yeah,
get-go, and it would not be what it is now without her.
right.
This is why we need each other as a community.
That's right. We need the
We really
editors.
do.
And maybe the
Yeah.
like editors and agents need to be part of the community in a way that the authors have a lot of
Mm,
voice, right? But I
mhm.
think a lot of agents and editors should be
Part of
like
this
to hear them talking
conversation.
too. Yeah, yeah. They're the
Yeah,
ones who are like
that's
in our books and stuff.
so before we wrap up here, I need to know, what are you reading right now?
Okay, so I abandoned a book recently. I
That
think
was
I'm
not the
gonna
question,
abandon it. I
Ian.
think it's gonna go. The
Okay.
last book I really loved was this was a book by an Australian writer. It's Julianne Van Loon's
Mhm.
called The Thinking Woman, right? It's
Okay.
nonfiction, about 6 essays,
Mhm.
where she just kind of sort of writes nonfiction alongside a woman's idea on love or labor or work or
Mhm.
play or
Mhm.
something like that. Just really well woven together, right?
Ooh, I
So
like
that's
this.
Julianne Van Loon,
Okay.
The Thinking Woman.
Yeah.
Um, Fiction, reading a little bit of, I started Playground recently, but I've put that down for a few
Mhm.
days. I've got a few things on my list like that I might pick up and read. You read simultaneously too?
Too
Yeah,
many books. Yeah.
right. Last good poetry that I read, Karen Solis,
Mm.
Well Water, right?
Mm.
Yeah, that's her last collection, and it's just her at peak, firing on all
Oh,
cylinders. Just when you see a poet and you're lucky enough to like see them at their prime, they're great.
such a rush, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Nonfiction. I'm looking forward to like Atwood's in the fall, that memoir. I don't
Mhm.
know how she's going to approach her life. I have no idea how she's
But
going
she's
to do
got like 160,000 words of it, apparently.
just want to see it. I think she's gonna like it's gonna be instructional, right? To see like how
Yeah.
she thinks about her life. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's yeah, reading a few
Awesome.
things. Yeah.
All right, everybody, take notes, right? Let us know what you think of those if you do read them, if you
Mm.
have read them. Ian Williams, thank you so much for being here. This has been such a wonderful conversation.
Oh,
And
it's been a great one.
congratulations.
It's
Yeah.
been a great one. And thanks for taking
Yeah.
us to all of those places, right? Regardless of like whether how they work, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
yeah, keep it real.
Let's have these
Yeah.
conversations.